Good evening. Welcome to Tacks. Even as we await the universal adult vaccination starting the 1st of May, state after state is saying they're not in a position to do that. More importantly, though, today the courts, both the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court, had some not so charitable things to say about how the respective governments, both Delhi and centre, have handled this COVID crisis. But first, we're getting this breaking news straight from the Prime Minister's meeting with the empowered group of ministers. Amid this COVID crisis, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has chaired a meeting to review the functioning of different empowered groups of ministers through video conferencing. The EGOM on economic welfare measures made a presentation to the Prime Minister on steps taken, such as the extension of the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. It also discussed the portability enabled because of One Nation, One Ration Card initiative, which has helped benefit more people. The insurance scheme for frontline workers has also been extended now for another 6 months. The Prime Minister directed officials to work in close coordination with states to ensure that the poor get the benefits of free food grain without any issues. Let me go across to Payal Mehta, who's joining us with more details. So, the Prime Minister taking stock of the situation countrywide.
Yes, Zakka, this is a very important meeting that the Prime Minister really has held, because not only has he spoken about, the One Nation, One Ration Card issue, he's also spoken about the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, which means it provides 5 kgs of rice and food grains, to families as well. That is something which he's also reviewed. And he's also made sure that, and he's reviewed that there should not be any breakage as far as the supply chain is concerned. So that needs to be made sure of, and that needs to be ensured that it is done in a very, very systematic manner. And there are, of course, a lot of health workers and frontline workers, Zakka, who are on the front line. Their insurance scheme has been extended by another 6 months. So that will give them a lot of relief. Should, God forbid, anything happen to them, at least their families will be taken care of. And also, the Prime Minister has asked for the Jan Bhagidari now to really happen. He's asked the government and the empowered group to look at involving, the public, basically involving civil volunteers for specialist kind of tasks involved with COVID management. He's also asked for ex-servicemen to come forward and handle, if they can, call centers to help people who are actually quarantined or, probably stuck with COVID at home. So all of these things being discussed with the Prime Minister, while he also asked for the NGOs that they should establish and maintain lines of communication between patients, their dependents and the healthcare workers. So obviously, an overall appeal being made by the Prime Minister at a time when the cases are just not coming down in the entire, especially the national capital.
All right. I believe that the Prime Minister has also just tweeted moments ago about this particular meeting of the empowered group of ministers. We'll try and see if we can roll that up and put it up on our screen, the tweet by the Prime Minister. I'll just going to read out from what he has actually said. Just give me a second. Prime Minister Narendra Modi convening this meeting of the empowered group of ministers. This is what he has just tweeted moments ago about the situation as far as the country is concerned. He has said that chaired a meeting during which the working of the various empowered groups is reviewed. These empowered groups are looking into various aspects of COVID relief and helping people. And there's a press release as well. So we'll see how this story plays out. Meanwhile, let's shift focus now to something else that we've been tracking here on CNN. There you go. That's the tweet of the Prime Minister. Chaired a meeting during which the working of the various empowered groups was reviewed. The empowered groups are looking into various aspects of COVID relief and helping people. Meanwhile, the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court today, respectively, had not so nice things to say both to the Delhi government and to the central government. And the moot point is this, that Delhi, the national capital, needs special attention, and this can only happen if both centre and state come together and be on the same page. It's okay for political point scoring under normal circumstances, but let's face it, we are not faced with normal circumstances. This is the biggest humanitarian health crisis in our lifetimes. Who should be held accountable for the mess that has become Delhi? All right, so there were two separate matters, one in the Delhi High Court, the other in the Supreme Court. Let's bring you up to speed with what both the respective courts had to say. The Delhi High Court first, which pulled up the central government and asked, why has Delhi been allotted less oxygen supply as opposed to what is required? Delhi requires about 900 metric tons or so, but the oxygen supply is about 480 or so. Why only 480 to 490 metric tons of oxygen to Delhi? That's the question that the High Court has asked. Why are other states getting much more oxygen than the national capital is? The government must abide by Article 21, which is the right to life, and the central government must resolve the oxygen crisis in the national capital. The shortage of oxygen is not a battle, according to the court, it is a war. And we would tend to agree with that. Separately, there was another matter that came up in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has also pulled up the central government, saying that supply of 700 metric tons of oxygen to Delhi by Monday has to be done. It is also said that the centre has a special responsibility towards the national capital because of this whole concept of divided government. And then it has also gone on to say, the Supreme Court, that the centre must push the spirit of dialogue to save lives. The governments, both centre and state, must know that this is a humanitarian crisis. Quit political bickering at a time of this national crisis. That's what the court has said to both the centre and to the state. Dr. Ami Ben Yagnik of the Congress, Member of Parliament and spokesperson, joining us. Dilip Cherin, founder and consulting partner of Perfect Relations. Suhail Seth, columnist, actor and author. And R.P. Singh, spokesperson of the BJP, also joining us. Suhail Seth, I'll start with you. I mean, both the courts saying that, and to both centre and state, get your damn act right. Otherwise, we're going to have to step in.
I completely agree. And I must share some very heartwarming news with you, Zakka, that today the Supreme Court advocates on record trust, which is a trust headed, of which managing trustee is Harish Salve, has gone around looking and collecting oxygen cylinders. Because what has happened today is that the citizen has to now fend for him or herself, which to my mind is tragic, because that shows a complete lack of governance and a complete lack of governmental intervention. The fact that the courts have had to intervene, to my mind, is emblematic and is indicative of the mess we are in. Having said that, I think it was Tushar Mehta, the Solicitor General, who yesterday or day before actually talked about the fact that Delhi was being given a certain amount of oxygen, but it wasn't being utilized, or, there weren't enough tankers. And then the Delhi government said, no, we have enough tankers, and then releases an ad asking for tankers. So the point I'm making, Zakka, is there's a lot of confusion, which is causing, rightfully so, an immense amount of panic in the citizen. It doesn't behove of India's capital to be wanting of hospital beds, of oxygen, of basic medical supply. And to my mind, the fact that the courts have intervened is that they've shown the citizens that, look, there is one option still, which is the judiciary. But then the judiciary isn't running the government. So who is running the government? And I completely agree with your opening remarks. This is not the time to blame people. This is the time for people to come together and come together in a cohesive manner, in a manner which reeks of compassion and which gets things done. So I hope that after the strictures pronounced by both the Supreme Court and the Delhi High Court, there will be more action. But what is actually needed is more accountability. And I think the courts have fixated on that we need more and more people in government to be accountable to the citizen and to the citizen's rights and the citizens' needs as they are today.
I want to go to R.P. Singh because, I understand the divided nature of government in Delhi. Some of it reports to the central government, some of it reports to the Delhi government. But all of that is kosher if we were living in normal times. These are not normal times, R.P. Singh. These are absolutely extraordinary times. And frankly, the citizen of Delhi does not care who he is getting help from, whether it is Delhi government or central government. All that the citizen of Delhi is asking for is, please give me an oxygen bed or please find me an ICU bed. It doesn't matter if central government is helping get that or Delhi government is helping get that. But the worst thing is, if both governments, and that's what's happening in Delhi, both governments are saying, pehle aap. That can't be the case. That's not something that the citizens of the national capital deserve. R.P. Singh.
Zakka, I partially agree with Suhail on certain fact that responsibility has to be fixed. Who is responsible for what? And there's nothing like Pehle Aap. And I don't agree with you. There's something like Pehle Aap. Health is a state subject. We all know that. Health has to be taken by state. We all know that. Since this is a capital, center has involvement with us that they can provide for more infrastructure here, better infrastructure here. That center can butt in. But the fact is that 490 metric ton has been allocated, out of which only 370 metric ton has been lifted. But there's still 120 metric ton for every day which need to be picked up by the state government only, which center can't put a pipeline to get you a pipeline thing. You have to send your trucks, special trucks, and then fetch them to your hospitals. And not only that, you also know that.
Mr. Singh, can I just play devil's advocate? It's unfortunate we don't have an AAP representative on the panel tonight.
Please.
No, one second. Can I just say, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Please.
This is what the Delhi government is saying. Number one, Delhi is not an industrial hub like other cities and states are. Therefore, all the oxygen that's manufactured is outside of Delhi, therefore needs to be transported into Delhi. Number two, Delhi does not have cryogenic cylinders and cryogenic trucks to bring this oxygen, which is why the ads have been put out in place. Can I ask a simple question? If that's what the position of the Delhi government is, why can't the centre step in and say, Haryana should provide cryogenic tankers, or Uttar Pradesh should provide cryogenic tankers, or oxygen should be brought in from the eastern part of the country, from Bengal, from Odisha, where there is surplus oxygen. Surely that's the remit of the central government.
Okay, thank you for playing the devil's advocate, but there were special trucks which was brought in, special tankers which were brought in, which has been allocated to Delhi. The maximum number of them, probably 40 out of 48, has been allocated to Delhi only. They have been specially being airlifted from Singapore, UAE, and other countries, France, and they have been given to Delhi. Now, organizing and getting it, and you're saying the states, Himachal has already offered, saying that we'll give you whatever oxygen you need, you take it from us, we still have surplus. Or Himachal has said, the CM is on record for that part. But dialogue has to happen from Delhi itself. I mean, either we dump Delhi government and put an administrator there and say, okay, you deal with everyone now. The Delhi government who need to talk to, I mean, the chief minister is saying, I'm prepared to provide you. Someone need to pick up a call and say, sir, tell me, where do I pick it up from? That's all.
I agree with you on a limited point. But Dilip Cherian, I think RP Singh has a fair point. No other state do you see a chief minister come out and say, this is not in my hands, I can't do it, everything is with the centre. I mean, if everything is with the centre, then the gentleman might as well please quit the post, right? Quit the chair. Why have an elected government if everything is going to be controlled by the central government? I mean, everything is put back. I mean, I asked somebody in our newsroom the other day, this second wave has been upon us for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Can you please tell me one makeshift hospital, one, that the Delhi government has built?
Well, Zakka, I think that the issue is a fairly simple one. In the middle of this pandemic, you have actually usurped more powers out of the Delhi government. Just playing the role of the devil's advocate again, is this the time to do that? My view is that Delhi, and let's go beyond all these arguments, Delhi needs to get its act together. We have almost all the ministries of the government of India apparently engaged in this. The Prime Minister has just reviewed with his cabinet and the empowered committee. There is nothing that the centre cannot do. Yes, there are things that the state government ought to have done, but that is the blame game. I think the answer is that Delhi represents the largest agglomeration in this country in terms of urban population. So you have a huge problem. And there is no doubt that this scale of the problem is something that may have been predicted, but not enough has been done.
No, but
sure.
Dilip, why don't we hear the same thing from the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, or the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, or the Chief Minister of Gujarat?
Very good reason.
What is the reason?
The reason is that those state governments are entitled to run their governments the way they want. And I think that is probably something that every citizen of Delhi needs to understand. Secondly, it is
Okay.
not only Delhi citizens
I'm
who
sorry,
is
I need to
affected by all
interject
this.
here.
I'm okay. Go on. No, no. Finish
The
your point.
problem
Finish.
is
No, no.
that
Let
you
Dilip finish,
have-
please. Let Dilip finish.
You
Yeah.
have an urban structure here in Delhi, which is, largely Ram Bharose. One part goes here, one part goes there.
I mean,
for a
the
politician
national capital of the country
should
cannot
have
be Ram
one-
Bharose. It cannot.
should have one center of power. And
Exactly.
that center of power needs to be elected, and that center of power needs to have the freedom to do what it does.
Ami
The fact is that today the
Yagnik
Supreme Court-
of the
Well,
Congress
move
party
on,
is
we'll
joining
talk
us.
about
Today the
Just
Supreme
one second,
Court
one second,
has-
gentlemen. Let me get Amiben Yagnik into the conversation, because
Sure.
to be fair, it's not like the states of Maharashtra, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, etc. are doing any better than Delhi. Frankly, they're pretty much in the same boat. They too are facing similar problems of oxygen shortage and lack of beds and so on and so forth. Yes, in the case of Delhi, A, there is so much more attention because of the national capital, and B, because of this divided form of government, things do get complicated. But it's not like the situation is any better in any of these other states. Ami Yagnik.
Zakka, you're absolutely right. These issues need not come at this point of time, as Dilip ji has said, that this is not the time to decide who gets what power. This is a national issue, and I think the central government has to have some kind of an equitable and equity principles for all states, and they have to take the actions themselves, whether it is vaccines or whether it is makeshift hospitals or whatever, where the states have got some autonomy. They are doing it in their own way, but somewhere there is this federalism working, and this federalism is not showing what it is supposed to do, and that is why 11 high courts and the Supreme Court have hauled up these governments for not doing their work. Constitution article 21, right to life. The citizens do not know whether the oxygen comes by tankers or it comes by pipelines or which state supplies to whom.
Okay.
They are in need of a bed right now. They want vaccine. They want some kind of oxygen. And it is this right to life, this right which is given by the constitution, is supposed to be given by the state. And in this case, I would consider the central government as the state. And so the central government has to take it into its hands, everything possible, and not come up with all
Okay.
this bickering with the
No,
state.
I-
And that is why the courts have hauled them up.
Fair enough.
Hauled
Fair
governments.
enough. We'll see how that case plays out both in the Supreme Court and the Delhi High Court. But Suhail Seth, I want to ask you a very simple question. The Delhi Chief Minister says, look, we are not an industrial state. There's no big ticket industry inside the national capital premises. It's all in the outskirts. We don't have any oxygen plants of our own. But a very simple question: what stops the Chief Minister of Delhi from picking up the phone and calling up the Chief Minister of Haryana or the Chief Minister of Punjab or the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh and say, we need oxygen. We are willing to pay for it. There is a huge surplus budget in the national capital. But we haven't heard those phone calls.
To be fair to what you've just said, sometimes ego comes in the way, and sometimes the desire to, play political grandstanding comes in the way. I don't know what's come in the way of Mr. Kejriwal. Having said that, it's very easy to say, oh, but the center did this, the state did this. I'm only asking you, Zakka, where does the citizen go? When whales fight, shrimps are eaten. Where are the shrimps that are being eaten every day? People are losing valuable lives. People have to fend for themselves. Dilip very rightly said, Ram Bharose, but actually today we are saved because from Ram Bharose, we are now Indians pe bharosa. More and more Indians are helping each other. More and more people are coming together, creating self-help groups. Now that is only this far and no further. We will need governmental intervention. There is zero transparency. There is no locus standi as far as people are concerned in terms of giving us medical benefits. We really don't know what the crisis is all about, but we are in the middle of a crisis. We're in the middle of a national crisis, which we have never seen the likes of for the last 100 years. So my point is that this is, as both the panelists rightly said, this is not the time for apportioning blame. But can we come together? Can we park our egos? Can we park our political differences? Can we park political grandstanding and say, look, we've made a mistake. We are now here together for the citizen of India.
Yeah.
and in a microcosm, the citizen of Delhi. Delhi is India's capital. Why are we shaming brand India in the manner that we are? When we say that, oh, we have no lack of, we have a lack of this and lack of that. Finally, Zakka, everyone knew this was coming. Kejriwal has been to an Indian Institute of Technology. He's an engineer. He knows what science is all about. At least he could have planned better.
Sure.
Let's imagine everyone else was wrong. At least he could have planned better. But that hasn't happened. And we see this all the time. Politics takes precedence over passion. Politics induces pain rather than some level of gratification or some level of care and affection.
Yeah.
And that is the real issue that we need to contend with. And I'm delighted that you're at least even discussing this.
No,
For the courts to intervene in an executive decision, then people say, oh, why are the courts trying to run the country? But if no one runs the country, someone has to.
Someone has to. No, RP Singh, let me flip. I think Suhail has a great point. I mean, Arvind Kejriwal did not anticipate, and I don't know why he did not anticipate the gravity of the crisis. But be that as it may, let me flip the same question which I asked Suhail. Why is the Delhi Chief Minister not picking up the phone and talking to the Chief Ministers of Haryana or Uttar Pradesh or other neighboring states and asking for oxygen? I can ask the same question of the central government. Why is the Cabinet Secretary not doing that? Why is the Home Secretary not doing that? Why is the Prime Minister's office not doing that? I mean, it's a simple thing, right?
Zakka, I started with saying that Himachal Chief Minister called and has sent a message to the Mr. Kejriwal, but Mr. Kejriwal has reverted back. He just after that he tweeted. Well, we don't know what is the problem. We don't know what's the ego there. I mean, he has formally, officially called and then put a Twitter also on that you need whatever help, we will provide you the oxygen. We have surplus oxygen. We still have surplus oxygen. One. Secondly, Zakka, just on 15th of April, our CM was saying that we have ample oxygen. We're not short of it. 19th, all of things changed for him also. Also, I'm not blaming him because no, he probably couldn't foresee what's coming.
Yeah.
But coming to the issue, on this oxygen concentrators we have provided to the center, just Kopai, the statement 3 days back, he said by 30th April, we will have all those 8 concentrators in place. One was already there, all 7 are there. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to do a survey where those 7 are. So,
right.
He's the IRS officer. He knows how to deal with things. He knows how to plan things. He's a former IRS officer. And then he has given a assurance of another 26, put together 44 by 30th May. I'll wait. I'll appreciate. Go through that.
We'll also want the situation.
Give me a second.
No, I got to wrap up, RP Singh, because I'm completely out of time. I'm completely out of time. You know, I agree. I agree with you that surely the state of Delhi could have better prepared for what the citizens are facing right now, and the same can be said to the central government as well. And that's what the courts are doing. Like Suhail rightly said, I mean, somebody's got to do the governance, somebody's got to do the checks and balances, and that's what the courts are doing. We'll see how those two respective cases go in both the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court. I want to thank all our guests in the meantime. Finally, as we wrap up, you know, we talk about here in the news business, for us, when we refer to news stories, it's always in the third person. It's always distant. It's always happening to somebody else. But this corona, this second surge, has hit us too. It has hit home, and we want to share with you some tragic news, just, you know, to make the point or to empathize or to share in the grief that we are also as much affected by this second surge as you all are, and as, you know, people we all know are. Our dear friend and our colleague, Hemant Kaushal, passed away late last night after fighting COVID for the last 10 days. He was just 42 years old. Hemant was one of the founding members of this channel, CNN News 18. And this is our very small tribute to a life that's been snuffed out far too young. It was far too early for him to have gone. This is a small tribute to Hemant's countless years of hard work and dedication. We just pray that God gives strength to his family to overcome this very, very grievous time. Thank you for your time.